we're going to be talking about your work. You have been involved in driving inclusion in technology and your work on diversity, equity, and access to STEM. So today we want to talk about how you have been leading. You are a leading advocate for tech inclusion since 2001, and that's a long time. What inspired you to embark on this path of increasing diversity in STEM education and STEM careers as well?
So it's a combination of two things I'm passionate about. One is feminism and women's access to power and leadership and economic opportunity. And then if you look at what are the most high paying jobs that take the shortest amount of time to get them, have the most growth in society, it's jobs in STEM.
Mm.
And then if you add to that the layer of the world that we are all living in is a world of technology. Everything that we inhabit is built by someone. You know, the chairs we sit on, to the cars we drive, the airplanes, to the devices we use every day. And right now, those are being primarily created without the input of women.
Mm.
And we couldn't possibly be building the best solutions for humanity if half of humanity is excluded from designing those solutions.
Mm. Mm. That's a very punchy passion there, and it is a huge problem. It's not today. It didn't start today. It's not ended yet. We keep hearing that we are getting there, but it seems like is a long walk in the park. So thank you for that. You have to have that passion because it's not a common route to follow, and we really are very appreciative of the fact that you have done so much in this area, and that's why we reached out to you to talk to you and also to invite you for the conference. So you are a woman with many hats. You as senior policy advisor, chief evangelist, very interesting title, and founder. How do you balance these demanding roles, and what strategies do you employ to stay focused on your goals for diversity and inclusion?
Well, I'm exceptionally good at building and leveraging networks. So, you know, when I was working in the White House, obviously, you know, the White House only has so much power, and it's really influential power. And so the success that we had with the Computer Science for All and tech inclusion work in the White House was really using the voice of the White House to bring a whole lot of people to the table that could then get the work done, right? Because ultimately, education is an enterprise that takes place between a child and their community, right? That's not something that is done nationally and globally typically. But I have an amazing network of people, and then I only do things I'm passionate about. Every job I have had for the last probably 20 years, I wrote the job description at some level. So I've been creating my own roles to work on things that I really, really care about. Like, I don't think I could be successful as a hired gun to raise money for some other cause that I didn't care about. Like, it has to be that the program and the work and the outcomes is driving the mission and everything all together, along with my passion for that mission.
Mm. Great, great, great. We're going to delve quickly into challenges in the tech industry and also for tech inclusion. You have worked tirelessly to expand access to education, tech education for underrepresented communities. Could you share the most pressing challenges that these communities face and the strategies you have implemented through the Last Mile Education Fund and your previous roles to overcome them?
So, like I said, most technology is being designed without the input of women. It's also being designed without the input of people of color, largely. And the threat that brings is that the technology won't serve people equally and will exclude people. And I think that's coming very clear with the emergence of AI and facial recognition and all the ways that technology is being developed without the voices of the people it should serve, but also without the voices of the people most at risk for harm.
Mm.
And so that is very problematic. So I would think that is the biggest risk we're facing. The challenge that I'm focused on right now, which happens to have some really amazing side benefits, is most students who are coming from poverty struggle to finish college. And in the United States, college is very expensive. It's probably the most expensive thing you will purchase in the early years of your life. And so making the choices about what that degree is and the pathway you're going to take is really critical. And so a lot of the students from lower income communities, number one, they're coming in less informed. They don't have as much information about what that pathway looks like and the things that they need to do to be successful. They often end up attending institutions that have less resources. So then they are not getting the same level of support and sort of uplift that they might get at a more well-resourced or prestigious school. And then, you have societal bias and all those pieces. So what we're attacking right now is the fact that only about 75% of students in the bottom two income quartiles are not going to finish college in 6 or 8 years. That's a huge waste of resources because of all the effort it took to get them into, halfway through a college degree in a technical field. And so we're providing what we're calling last mile funding. We're basically a financial safety net for striving students. So students who have raised their hand and said, I want to be an engineer, I want to do this job. We don't care what their grades are. We're not saying we only want the best students. We're saying we want any student who's trying, because everyone needs to graduate. There's too much invested and too much at stake for them to fail. And so we invest from an abundance viewpoint in students who are within 4 semesters of finishing a degree in a high demand field like computer science, data science, cybersecurity, robotics, AI. And already since 2020, we've funded almost 8,000 students to the tune of $9.6 million. And we're giving them money as quickly as within 3 days. Because if you're going to have to drop out of school because you can't pay your rent, or going to have to drop out of school because the car that you relied on to go to your multiple jobs to balance everything has broken down, you can't wait several weeks to hear back from a scholarship. You need help immediately. So we are an immediate sort of safety net fund to make sure that students are able to persist, graduate, and go into the workforce.
Wow, amazing. So a large amount of funds and students supported for in just a year. That is so amazing.
Well, 3 years. We started in earnest in 2021.
2021. Wow. Amazing. Well done. So as the senior policy advisor former for tech inclusion under the Obama administration, what key policies or programs did you think had the most lasting impact on advancing computer science for or education for all?
So we did a lot of huge things. One was just calling attention to the need for computer science education in the K-12 schools. And kind of what had happened in the United States is that when computers were first introduced to the schools, all you could do with a computer in the 80s was program it. And then eventually all of the software was created, and suddenly we went from teaching computing to teaching other subjects with computers. So you were learning other things, or learning how to use software, not learning how to create software. And so the Obama administration spent a lot of time and energy just calling attention to this deficit nationally and leveraging the already sort of bubbling up movement of computer science for all. And then another thing that we worked on was some changes in language in the Department of Education, because there were all of these notes in the Department of Education that said, if a teacher is teaching a high demand STEM subject, they could have, $17,000 of their student loans paid off, versus another teacher would only get $5,000. But states weren't interpreting high demand STEM to include computer science because it hadn't historically. So we kind of went through the Department of Education, and anywhere it said STEM, we were like, including computer science, just to clarify. And so sending out what they call a Dear Colleague letter from the National Science Foundation, from the Department of Education, letting states, which are usually the ones that receive these grants, know that computer science was part of those grant policies. And then ultimately, the Department of Education put out a pretty large grant program to fund computer science in schools. But the United States education system is extremely distributed. It's up to individual schools at the school level what is taught. So it was more a campaign of winning hearts and minds than it was a national top-down directive.
Wow, thank you. We're going to talk about your passion for empowering an interest as well in empowering underrepresented students, and which is one of the core of your work. Can you tell us some of the successful initiatives you launched, like the Aspiring Computing, and the long-term impact it had on, because it's one thing to have initiatives so amazing and profound as this. It's another thing for the impact it has on the participant. What impact have these initiatives had on the participants?
Sure. So Aspirations in Computing is an amazing program and still operating today. The impetus behind that program was way back. I think it was 2006 or 7. We were trying to get more and more people at the university level and the state level to think about more girls and women in computer science. And at some point, somebody was like, well, we should bring some girls to the meeting to inspire everybody. And we brought all these girls and we gave them a recognition and an award. It was relatively local. And it was great for the adults that were members of our partner organizations to have that inspiration, but the impact it had on the girls to be recognized for their technical ability was 10x, was tenfold what we were getting. And so I interviewed all these girls and they were like, I didn't think there were any jobs. I feel so welcome. I didn't know there was a pathway for me. I didn't know any other girls. And so Aspirations in Computing is now a nationwide program. I believe there's like 89 local sites. And the idea is that while there may only be 2 or 3 girls in your high school that are interested in tech, if you can get all the girls in a city together for dinner or breakfast or muffins, whatever, and connect them to each other, they can see that peer group and see that pathway. And so it's different in every different city, but the goal is to basically create a community of young women who are raising their hands at the high school level and saying, I want to be in a technology pathway, showing them that there's an entire industry and community waiting for them that wants them to be successful, showing them that they have peers that are doing this same kind of work and that it's not unladylike or you're not being a real girl by being technical. And then building this like powerful network. The program's been going on now since and in earnest since really 2007, 8. And now we have alumni who are, hiring managers at Microsoft and Apple and Google and very successful in their careers. And they know thousands of other young women who are also technical. So this is a perfect hotbed for like startup investment, like technical people who know each other, right? This is how startups get started. But I'll tell you one specific story is I got an email last week from one of those young women who went to high school in Tennessee. She was one of our national award winners. And she reached out to me to let me know she's going to join the faculty at Brown University as a robotics and AI professor. And could I help her identify some PhD students who are from underrepresented groups? And the journey of her going from high school to college to her pathways, getting a PhD. And last year she was a congressional AI fellow for one of the senators. So I've been watching her, but just it's so rewarding to see that she's now becoming a force multiplier for young women getting PhDs in AI and robotics. And there's so many of those examples where the young women that we supported over this pathway have now become experts in their fields. They're building diverse communities of employees within their own hiring and startups. There have been a number of startups as well. So it's really powerful to watch. And I can always rely on them anytime I need help. I'm like, I need someone to help with my website, or I need someone to write some Python script, I have a huge network that can help.
Exactly. Wow. Seeing the impact of your work, that is truly rewarding. Is there a difference between aspirations in computing and technologicas? I hope I pronounced that well.
Yeah, so Tecnolochicas is a spin-off in a way, but it's a campaign specifically for Latinas in technology. And the goal of Tecnolochicas, and it's a partnership with Televisa, which is the biggest television provider in Latin America, and the US. They provide a lot of the content for Univision, which is one of the biggest Spanish language TV networks in the US. Is that a lot of the United States is actually one of the largest Hispanic populations in one country. It's one of the it's funny to think about it, but the US is one of the largest Hispanic countries in the world in terms of population. And so part of the goal of this initiative was to make sure that Latinas knew about pathways in technology. And a lot of immigrant families, they go with what they know, and they're like, who is respected? Okay, doctors are respected, accountants are respected. So they are going to push their children into the pathways that they understand. And technology is the shortest pathway to a professional salary. You can go 2 years of school and get a professional job in cybersecurity, 4 years, and you can have an engineering job versus, at least 6 years for law school, 12 years for medical school. And so we wanted to make sure that the community, especially the parents, knew what a pathway in technology looked like for a Latina, that in fact those jobs could be done from anywhere and they don't have to take you away from your family. You don't have to move necessarily. Yeah. And so it's now in its 4th or 5th season. And I just saw my partner from Televisa, and he shared that they're going to train some 30,000 women in Mexico through the Tecnologicas program this year.
Okay, wow, that is 2 powerful initiatives there. Well done. We're talking about education now, tech education, promoting diversity. And we would really love to hear your insights there, because we have a lot of programs, initiatives in this area, and also the education part of it as well. And most of these initiatives will want to have a kind of an example, a model, that it's working, even these educational institutions as well. And you come in very handy here. You've been promoting diversity in tech education, which often involves recognizing and addressing cultural barriers. How can educational programs be designed to integrate cultural awareness and inclusivity, especially for underrepresented students? Because it's a different ball game. I'm also a STEM student. I did my PhD in engineering education. I was the only female in the room, and it wasn't it wasn't easy at all. And most times we hear that there's inclusion, before you get into school, you get all of the rhetorics and all the statements that you're welcome, everyone is welcome, but it's a different ball game altogether when you get into the classroom. What is your take on that?
Well, I think the word classroom is the take on that. I mean, ultimately, we need teachers. So like the US desperately needs teachers of color. We need male teachers of color. And so there's a number of really great programs being done, one at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, to increase participation of teachers of color in teaching computer science. And that, I think, ultimately, having teachers who come from your culture is going to change the feeling in the classroom. Now, it's going to be a while for us to have all of the old school of professors age out, and they just don't retire like they used to. And so they kind of stick around for a long time. And it's hard. It's hard to change big systems. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm finding in my current work with Last Mile Education Fund, it's like, at its foundation, the United States higher education system was designed for the children of the elite. So back in the day, you know, when they were like, what do you need to do to be ready to take over dad's farm or business or empire? That was what college was for. So it was for men and it was for the elite. And we have added more diversity in the student population, but we haven't addressed the foundational beliefs that are like embedded in the system, that everyone has access to credit and capital, or that everyone has the same preparation in getting there, and that everyone's had the same kind of role models. So one thing we've discovered very quickly with working with low income students who are finishing college is most career advising is coming from families, not from the schools. And so we're finding all of these really great students who've been working so hard and trying to get through college, but they haven't been, you know, meeting many of the other benchmarks, like doing an internship, like networking, like they don't have that same set of information coming at them that their peers do. And so we're trying to address some of those gaps. But long-term systems change takes a long, long time. And so our goal as an organization right now is we need to solve it for every kid that's in it right now. We can't afford to lose a single one. So we're going to continue giving grants to students every day. I mean, we give out $400,000 a month in grants to students. And we're going to take that data and what we're learning about what it means to be an underrepresented low-income student in an engineering pathway. And we're going to publish research, and we're going to share those insights back to the policymakers and the academic institutions in which these students exist, to let them know where they're failing and how they could do better in resourcing this population to be successful. And then there's always metrics. Like, one of the greatest things that has happened in the last few years is that the college scorecard that the Obama administration created, this several many years later, last year, US News and World Report changed the rubric on the rankings for colleges. And it used to be that you were ranked on the test scores of your incoming students, which is really just a popularity contest, right? Now you're ranked on the graduation rate of your poorest students. And a lot of elite schools fell way down the list because rich kids were doing very well at those schools, but poor kids weren't. And so I think now, as we start to measure the things, you get what you measure, you know, what is counted counts. And so as we start to change some of the measurements and the metrics by which organizations are judged and held accountable, we'll start to see better outcomes.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to be talking about the global impact of your work, and because you work in tech, inclusion, your work extends beyond the United States. How has your international advocacy influenced global policies, programs in tech education, and what notable outcomes have emerged from these collaborations?
Well, so I'm happy to say that a number of organizations from other countries have reached out to want to sort of replicate what we're doing. In particular, there's a sort of sister fund in the UK that's doing this work for women. And then actually just this week, a woman from South Africa reached out about wanting to copy our model there. And I am actually more than happy to share the model with folks, because we at Last Mile Education Fund are very focused specifically on students in the US in high demand STEM, but the model really works for any field where there's a lot of jobs available, right? And where there's demand for hiring. I also served on the high level advisory board of the European Center for Women in Technology. I've spoken at the United Nations. I've spoken at the European Parliament. And so I am very happy to collaborate with folks in other countries trying to solve these same kind of problems. So I will say the education system of the United States is pretty unique in its complexity. I'm not saying others aren't complex, but ours are very decentralized, which is challenging. And I also, this last spring, attended the L'Oreal Global Fund for Women convening in Paris, which was incredible because I got to meet with and connect with women leaders of nonprofits, focus on education, gender violence, and refugee services from all over the globe. And we now have a network, and we speak to each other on WhatsApp on a day-to-day basis about sharing opportunities, sharing outcomes, and solving problems collectively.
Yes, because going together always gets the more work done. Thank you, because your model is unique. Yes, you said it is unique, but it could be replicated, it could be tweaked and replicated. And thank you for your large heart to, bring accept people coming in to work with you on this huge issue. Thank you so much for that. You have a love for the youths, and it is palpable. Anywhere we hear you talk and speak, it is all about the youths. And we want to talk about the future of tech inclusion. What is your vision for the future of tech inclusion? What additional steps can governments, education, private companies as well take to ensure a more diverse and equitable tech industry?
So I want the institutions of higher education and the employers and society generally to take a broader view of who has potential. Because so I wrote an article a few years ago with Dwana Franklin Davis from Reboot Representation that was titled, hey, tech companies, stop conflating privilege with potential. And there's so many, when you're doing a hiring process, you have to apply filters. When you're admitting students to a college, you have to apply filters. But in so many cases, those filters are choosing things which are not necessarily an indicator of your talent as much as an indicator of your environment. So the fact that you got accepted to an elite university when you were 17 is really much more a function of the community in which you were raised and the affluence of your family than it is your innate talent. There's probably some very talented young people going to local state colleges that didn't even know that there was a pathway for them into an elite university. And so we overemphasize things like, what school did you go to? What is your grade point average? How many prestigious internships and experiences have you had? Or worse yet, hackathons, which in tech are this, go spend the weekend hacking on a problem, which is a great thing to do if you don't have to work every weekend. And so when companies say winners of hackathons are the top technologists, you're saying people who don't have to work on the weekends and can spend every weekend going to hackathons and win those things, those are top technologists. But people who are putting themselves through school by waitressing are not good technologists. I would argue that anyone who has navigated the financial aid and higher education system of the United States, especially as a first-generation student, has proven problem-solving skills. They have proven resilience. They know how to struggle and persist. These are all very good qualities in an employer, in an employee that you want. You want someone who can fail and keep going. Yet our system is optimizing for markers of people who have never hit a bump. And so I want employers to broaden their view of who has potential. A lot of companies have this policy of, we only recruit from these 10 schools. I understand they only have so much capacity for recruiting. I get that. But there's other structural barriers in the system, like an internship. And this is actually part of the origin story of Last Mile, is your internship doesn't pay you for moving there until you get there in many cases. And so our co-founder, Ryan, was going to cancel an internship at one of the biggest companies in the US because she couldn't afford a bus ticket from one state to another, right? Well, we solved that, and today she's in a great position at this bank and has been there many years, very successful, married, and has a baby and a house, and everything is great. But she could have been slowed down significantly or derailed had she not been able to take that opportunity. And so the assumption that even paid opportunities are equally accessible, they're not, if you have to have capital upfront to access them. So I want companies to recognize that the largest pool of untapped talent we have is people coming from the lower income communities. And when you tap that pool, you also get diversity, but you get resilience, persistence, problem solving, like all those valuable traits that we often hear are missing. Employers are like, they're missing the soft skills. They don't know how to fail. Well, that's because you're selecting from a very, very narrow set of young people.
That is a great insight into this topic. And for me, the key word here is apply filters. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. Advice for aspiring leaders. As someone who has paved the way for so many underrepresented individuals in tech, what advice would you give to a young woman out there, particularly those from marginalized communities looking to pursue careers in STEM?
You are always building your network. Every single interaction you have is you building your network. And in building that network, it's important to offer before you ask. And that's like a big piece of advice. A lot of people, they meet someone, they're like, hey, can you help me? It's like, you need to offer them something of value before you ask for value. That's number one. Number two piece of advice that I give students is, and young people, is you got to be the squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So many people think, I'll just work hard and someone will notice me. People get recognitions, awards, opportunities, promotions because they step up and ask for them. And so that means, like, for example, with aspirations in computing, I came into that organization and I like, this program has so much potential. Let's scale it. I built a franchise model. I raised the money. I just did it. And so if you step up and lean in, so I hear from a lot of students, well, I got to my internship and they didn't have anything for me to do. No way. Come up with something for you to do. Propose something. Solve a problem that they have and you become invaluable. And so I think you need to make yourself known and be noticed. And that's hard for some people who are introverts and stuff, but whether it's through your work or your initiative, you need to make yourself known.
Great advice there. I'm sure it will come in so handy. Thank you. We are going to talk about your invitation to the Global Power Women Conference to receive the Global Female Leadership Impact Award by CLD and at the City University of New York Women's Center. You've been invited to speak and also to receive the award and featured in the first of its kind Global Power Women Yearbook Volume 2, which is an extraordinary compilation of showcasing the remarkable tales of women's triumph, innovation, influence. This feature, therefore, undoubtedly highlights your impact and influence on a global scale. How do you feel about being recognized alongside other influential women, and what message do you think or hope your inclusion sends to aspiring leaders, especially women around the world and the young women in tech as well?
Well, I'm obviously extremely honored to be chosen for this award. It was a really wonderful surprise to receive. I'm kind of interested to hear how you found out about me, which I'd love to hear that at some point. And looking forward to sharing the stage with so many accomplished women. I'm hoping that, there's so many ways for people to make an impact now. You could be a social media influencer and share stories and inspiration. You can create a technology that has, exponential impact on the world and solving a problem or curing a disease. There's so many ways that you can have impact. And my advice is generally just, if not you, then who? Just do it. Like if there's a problem in front of you that you think you have a unique approach to solving, just do it, because it needs to get done. And if not you, then who? Like there's no barrier in applying your energy. Even if it doesn't work out, you're going to learn something from that experience.
Yes, absolutely. What's your opinion about the impact of this Global Power Women Yearbook, especially as it chronicles the courage that pays homage to the tenacity of women who have defied norms and shattered glass ceilings?
Well, I'm super excited to read more. I've read some of it already, and I think that the opportunity to disseminate this content, there's so much negative content that we see every day, that having stories of success and empowerment that can show young women that there is a pathway to success for them. And I'm really actually happy at where we are in the world today compared to where we were when I started this work. Because when I first started working on women in STEM, nobody was talking about it. Nobody thought it was a problem. And, recently I learned that a group of Girl Scouts have taken upon themselves to fix the fact that in Central Park of New York, the only statue of a woman is Alice in Wonderland.
Mm.
There are no suffragettes, no founding women, no women leaders. There are no statues to commemorate women in the biggest park in one of the most traversed cities in the country. And so this group of Girl Scouts have decided they're going to solve that problem. And I think that as we change the history that we're recording, we can change the future that we're going to have.
Mm. Mm. Very profound, a very profound statement there. Thank you. I'm sure that our audience will want to know what is next for Ruth Farmer.
Couple of things. I have a really interesting disruptive idea about how to solve the student loan debt crisis in the United States. So I'm kind of working on a policy idea around that. I'm really excited about the potential of a Harris administration and turning more attention to diversity and inclusion, and turning some attention to changing some of the policies in the tax code related to financial aid and how we support low income students. And we're about to hit our 10 million students, our 10 million grants number. So we're going to be celebrating that. And we're pretty close to 10,000 students too. So we're hoping to celebrate that as well within a year.
That would be great, great. So we want to hear about that, so we could also promote that, because it's a real great achievement there. So we want to hear about it. We'll follow you. We'll follow your work over these years, and we want to celebrate you when that time comes, and also work hand in hand as well to ensure that technology that empowers women is in the hands of the right people. Thank you so much for your time today. You were awesome throughout the interview, and we hope that this message will go out there and will reach those that it needs to reach, and also empower young girls as well as organizations that are looking to have the gender diversity enshrined in their system as well, to do it the right way, and your model apply filters. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to meeting you in New York in a few days' time.
Yeah, and in New York, is it a panel?
Yes.
And there will be a moderator asking questions?
Yes, definitely.
Perfect.
We'll send you the panel guide ahead of time.
And then can I invite other people to the
Yes, sure,
event?
sure. Just send us the names so that we can register them in. That's fine. Definitely.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll keep in touch until that day. So whatever you need, just let us know, and we'll plan for it.
Nice meeting you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. Have a good evening.